Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a completely fascinating dynamic that is playing out across the entire business landscape right now. Everyone is rushing to adopt AI, hoping it's going to be this magic silver bullet for all their operational headaches. But instead of fixing things, this rush is actually exposing some massive foundational cracks in how small and medium businesses truly operate.
Absolutely. People are convinced they have a software problem, but the reality is they have a structural problem. So, what does this actually look like on the ground for most companies? Let's get right into the reality of how these businesses are actually running behind the scenes.
There's this phrase we use that just perfectly nails this dynamic. The owner is the operating system. Think about how early stage and mid-sized businesses are built. Survival demands incredible speed. There's literally no time to sit down and meticulously document processes. So the whole thing just runs on the founder's gut instinct, their memory, and honestly, sheer force of will.
Right, and the crazy thing is that works beautifully. Well, until it completely doesn't. Slowly the team grows from, say, 5 people to 20, the client list blows up, and suddenly the owner is just drowning. The entire operation relies on one single person to function. Pricing decisions, talking to vendors, dealing with angry customers, it all flows straight through the founder. So the second they step away, or even just try to take a weekend off, execution totally stalls. The business doesn't actually have a system yet. It just has an owner who is working way too hard.
We actually call the ultimate manifestation of this chaos the WhatsApp operating system. And that's not an exaggeration at all. It is the literal execution architecture for hundreds of thousands of businesses right now. It's disjointed communication, scattered messages everywhere, mental sticky notes. It's a mess.
Oh, for sure. Supplier follow-ups are happening on WhatsApp. Payment confirmations are literally just screenshots buried in a 300-message group chat. I mean, imagine a $10,000 wholesale order getting delayed for a week just because someone dropped a thumbs-up emoji instead of giving an official approval. The communication is entirely fragmented, which creates an environment where massive coordination gaps and daily headaches are just accepted as normal.
And this brings us to a really crucial distinction. Most businesses are walking around believing they are simply under-automated. They're thinking, hey, if we just buy that shiny new AI tool or the latest CRM, we'll finally fix our efficiency problems.
But that is a fundamentally flawed assumption. The hard truth? They aren't under-automated, they are under-structured. Think about it. The fragmented communication, the undocumented workflows, the heavy reliance on the owner, none of that was caused by a lack of software. It's an architectural gap. AI didn't create this chaos, it just arrived with a giant spotlight, making all the existing disorganization incredibly visible and way harder to ignore.
And yet, despite this massive structural gap, the rush toward buying technology is just staggering. To put this into perspective, we have data from JP Morgan and Ramp covering over 50,000 U.S. businesses, and nearly 45% of them are already paying for some form of AI subscription.
You can't blame them, really. Founders are feeling the pressure. They see their competitors making moves, they read the endless headlines, and they just assume they need to plug AI into their operations right this second. But here's the catch. When you plug a hyper-fast AI agent into a business that's currently running on scattered chat messages and verbal approvals, you don't get magical efficiency. You just get automated confusion.
Right, and history actually warns us about this massive rush to buy software. Just look at enterprise resource planning, or ERP implementations. The failure rates there are staggering. They consistently land somewhere between 50 and 75%.
And why do they fail so often? It's almost never the technology itself. It's because the business tried to automate before they took the time to structure their workflows. They layer this highly complex software over a completely broken system. If you take a really ambiguous, messy process and apply automation to it, that ambiguity just becomes way more expensive and incredibly rigid.
So why does automation so frequently disappoint people? Well, it almost always boils down to undocumented processes and unclear workflows. Because at its core, automation is fundamentally an amplifier.
Exactly. It's a megaphone. If a process is clean and logical, automation scales that efficiency beautifully. But if your process is totally dependent on informal, verbal judgment calls from your staff, automation just makes those errors happen much faster and makes them infinitely harder to untangle later. The software inherently demands a level of data discipline that the team simply doesn't have the clarity to maintain on a consistent basis.
Buying a CRM or some high-end project management tool without actually designing the underlying system first, it's just an illusion of progress.
Yeah, you aren't really fixing the problem at all. You're basically just replacing messy physical confusion with really well-formatted digital confusion. A CRM sitting on top of an undisciplined sales process is not going to magically boost your sales. Fast forward 6 months and your team is quietly going to go right back to their WhatsApp chats. simply because the new tool doesn't match how the work actually gets done on the floor.
This actually brings us to some completely fascinating data from Deloitte. They polled nearly 3,700 professionals, and the findings are a serious wake-up call. Almost half, 48%, of organizations are introducing AI tools without redesigning their workflows at all. They're literally just slapping AI onto outdated pre-AI process maps. Meanwhile, a mere 12% have actually put in the work to execute work redesign at scale under a totally new operating model. This means the vast majority of companies out there are just speeding up their existing bottlenecks. Sure, they might execute a few specific tasks a little faster, but they're facing structurally higher costs and way less flexibility because they haven't stopped to rethink how the work should actually flow from A to Z. Okay, so here's the golden rule you have to remember. AI cannot create execution discipline where none existed before. You literally cannot automate workflows that you never properly understood manually in the first place. Buying software is absolutely not the same thing as building a system. The system must always, without exception, precede the software. If your team is still relying on the owner's memory to figure out how to resolve a specific type of customer complaint, let me tell you, no AI chatbot in the world is going to untangle that knot for you. Imagine these two totally contrasting realities for a business. On one side, we have that scattered, owner-dependent reality. Sticky notes, 5 different chat apps, panicked verbal orders in the hallway. But on the other side, we have visible accountability, clearly mapped process flows, a central CRM, and strictly defined ownership for every single stage of the customer journey.
Right, and in that chaotic first model, a delayed delivery quickly turns into 3 full days of finger-pointing between sales, ops, and the supplier, mostly because there is no single workflow trail to follow. But in the structured model, the process map acts as the single source of truth. You can see exactly where the breakdown happened. True automation is only going to work when your business is operating in that second, structured reality.
Which leads us perfectly into a concept called execution leakage. This is the hidden, incredibly painful cost of putting off all this structural work. It's that invisible gap between what you planned to happen in the boardroom and what physically occurred on the ground. And the scary part is, this leakage compounds silently every single month you run on undocumented processes. It doesn't look like a formal process failure at first, right? It just looks like a random angry customer complaint. Or it looks like your absolute best employee suddenly quitting because they are just exhausted from putting out fires all day. Or maybe it's a missed revenue target. But it's not random at all. It is systematic execution drift. And the financial impact of this is stark. McKinsey data actually shows that for organizations with strong data foundations and really clear workflows, AI can add up to 3.4 percentage points of annual productivity growth. That is huge. But for companies plagued by structural ambiguity, those gains totally evaporate. They end up minimal or sometimes even negative. AI's productivity promise is absolutely real, for sure, but it is highly conditional. The market heavily rewards organizations that take the time to establish clarity first, and it actively punishes the ones that try to skip the hard work of building a foundation. And this lack of a foundation creates an incredible autonomy accountability gap. Just think about this. Right now, 69% of firms only trust AI with low-risk, easily reversible tasks, or they don't allow autonomous action at all.
Exactly. Only 12% have actually matured to the point where AI can run end-to-end processes where humans are just auditing the outcomes rather than having to approve every single little step. You simply cannot trust AI to execute autonomously if you haven't explicitly documented who owns the outcome when something inevitably goes wrong. Governance and trust require a real operational track record, and you only get that through documented clarity.
Okay, so how do business owners actually fix this? It really comes down to a clear, actionable sequence. Step 1, document what you actually do. And I mean what you physically do, step by step on a typical Tuesday. Not what you think you do or what you tell clients you do in a fancy pitch deck.
Spot on. Then, step 2, identify the repetitive, rule-based tasks within that documentation. Those are going to be your prime candidates for AI. And finally, step 3, build the workflow before selecting the tool. The tool should always be forced to follow your clear process. You should literally never be inventing your process just to serve a piece of software's limitations.
As we wrap up this explainer, it really all boils down to one absolutely core lesson. Technology rarely fixes broken systems. It's a profound shift in how we need to think. Operational clarity, knowing exactly how work gets done, who is accountable, and having highly visible process trails is quickly becoming the ultimate competitive advantage in the AI era. The businesses that close the gap between complexity and clarity, those are the ones that are going to win. We want to leave you with a final, provocative thought to really reflect on before you go out and buy your next piece of software. Ask yourself, honestly, do you have a system worth automating?
Because if the answer is no, then your next step isn't a technology upgrade. It's an operational reset.
Build the structural clarity first, and then let AI accelerate it. Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer.